Good, all my soul G's, soul guys, all the people out there of any identification. Welcome back to another episode slash edition of the CGT podcast, Create, Grow, Transmute podcast, where we are consciously talking about foreign relations most of the time, constantly talking about I guess, grass led movements and revolutions that we see based off around the world. I got an exciting one for y'all today. We're going to go on a lesson about good old Mexico, Mexico, Mexico. Right next, our southern neighbors, to the south if you're living in America, and our global neighbors if you're living on planet Earth overall. The last couple episodes, I took the time to talking about Haiti, and of course, I'm very vocal about Israel, Palestine, and all that other stuff on my Instagram and Cop City and all this other stuff. There's a lot of that's mostly around what I've been focusing on. I'll probably give y'all a Cop City episode later this month. But today we're gonna be focusing on the state, the country of Mexico, our southern neighbors, and how the stuff that's been going on in their country for the last, I'll say, 20 years really has needs to be studied by most Americans, whether they be on the left or the right, simply because they have had a real, or I'm not going to, it's not a 100%, but it's a very strongly accepted movement going on in their country where laborers and workers are actually regaining a little bit of power bit by bit. And a lot of that has been, if you ask people on the ground, based off of my own opinion, based off of the research and the people that I talk to, AMLO is the reason for that. We're gonna watch a video about him to help y'all see the position he's in, or that he has been in for the last 6 years, and even before that, getting denied the presidency, even when he technically got like the votes and shit he needed. It's just a very long story to get where he's at today, and it's very interesting coming from somebody who sees himself as a quote unquote soldier, or what you might call adjacent to a revolutionary or whatever. And the whole country of Mexico is interesting to me. It's a beautiful place, but in general, it gets so much negative commentary and coverage from the media, especially in America. And obviously, I'm gonna go ahead, and the reason I'm even bringing this intro in is so I can explain that, just to get people to understand the fucked up position that the American government and its corporate greed led private sector has put most of Latin America in. More than 70, 80, like we can go back further than that, but we're not going to go back that far. We're just going to establish that point just by speaking on it. Go do your own independent research. We talking about Mexico today, but all of Latin America has had to deal with this to an extent. And I think they're going to talk about it in this video, but like I said, the the very insidious way that America deals with Mexico is based off of them trying to basically project that they have this really bad drug cartel problem that is 100% based off of them, without you being known, without you knowing that most of the weapons that the drug cartels have, they get from America. They get, they don't, and half of it, I'm really starting to speculate whether or not they actually selling the weapons to them or they just giving it to them just so they can do some coup d'etat type of activity. Whenever the leader who was in problem before power before AMLO got there, they used the cartels as a way to do some Haiti type shit and just be like, yeah, this nigga's not doing exactly what we want him to do, or either people have caught on to us. Let's just get a new motherfucker. Since AMLO has been in there, um, there it hasn't been perfect. It's not like this man is like fucking a uh Jesus basically. Uh, it's not like he Jesus. Everything had been perfect. It's been very decent, especially if you compare it to the regimes that was in Mexico politically beforehand, it kind of had the same taste that America politics had, where they had a very limited party. Like they had different parties, but the main two parties mainly got in power, and even out of those main two, only one of those main two even actually mostly had the power then. Throughout the whole time before AMLO, and then the reason this is marking a change is because just announced yesterday, breaking news, and I kind of buried the lead. They just elected their first female president in Mexico, and she's coming from the same party as AMLO. So it's kind of like people are saying this as a continuation of the momentum they built in that party over the last, like I think if I'm not mistaken, they just started the party back when they denied him the right to be the president back in the day, and now it's got that much power already. So this is the type of shit that America don't want its public to see. This is why anytime they talk about Mexico, especially nowadays, it's gonna be because you only gonna hear drug cartel talk. You're not gonna hear nothing positive about what this man has been doing, nationalizing sectors of their market so that the people can benefit from that. You know, and so that so that the country as a whole can benefit from it instead of just private investors. That's one of the things, and there's many other things. But don't get me wrong, it's not like this man perfect. He obviously is doing uh, a couple things that is very iffy. Not a couple. It's kind of like iffy, but in the position that he's in, it's kind of like America is given a shadow. Whether let's say this man is a fucked up person, AMLO and the whole party. Let's say that everybody that's associated with AMLO and him and himself is fucked up. The fact that America has done so much negative things in Mexico, including powering, feeding, supplying the drug cartels, it's very hard to even fucking criticize AMLO because you really don't know what the fuck this man got to go through. And the things that we can criticize him for, you know, being a corporate sellout. Of course, you gotta do business with America. America and Mexico, and if I'm not mistaken, are each other's top imports and exports. So you got to do business with certain people. You got to make certain deals. But the way it's been done, you can't just say this man is like a socialist champion or a communist champion, basically meaning that he's a champion of the people completely. But he is as close as America has seen in a while, like North America, I would say. So, with that being said, we're gonna dive into it, get a little analysis from other people, and see what we gonna come out on the other end. The main goals of me sharing this with y'all is so y'all can get a true understanding of what's going on in Mexico from a historical point of view, but mostly in a present point of view, and also to just do a compare and contrast of like like so we can get an introduction of the new president they just elected and to see what it's going to turn out to be. Because once again, AMLO wasn't perfect, and I don't expect her to be, even if she is in the same party. There is a couple red flags going on right now with a couple people simply because I'm not trying to say just because she's Jewish means she's going to support Israel, but AMLO really didn't take a stand on the Israel shit either. He basically saying he just want peace, which I can respect that. He not really taking a side. He got, but the thing is, like the most egregious thing I would say is that he's a part of the whole spying on your population thing with Pegasus. Pegasus is a spying software that Israel basically exports throughout the world to governments that just want to control people. I mean, not control, but spy on their citizens. Now, in the case of AMLO in Mexico, we can say that, hey, this is being used against the drug cartels, but we don't know for sure. Once again, just because the way that Pegasus works, it's a very secretive thing. So a lot of people are speculating that AMLO and that whole party, the whole party that he ushered in, or the people in Mexico ushered in through him, um, might not be as like perfect on the Israel conflict or when it comes to like being a socialist champion completely. But outside of that, that's the only critiques I have that I'm aware of right now. Um, and like I said, it's just because that's the only critiques I have right now because it's hard to critique a person when America's been up their ass from the beginning. So we're gonna figure out what the history of. We're gonna look at Claudia Sheinbaum, I think Sheinbaum, We gonna look at a little bit of history about her and try to figure out where she could possibly be leading the country, just to know a little bit about her and see where she gonna be focusing a lot of her political efforts at. But we don't know. We gonna have to just look at what we know about her so far and see how it turns out. The Mexican presidency limits, I think, are 6 years. So yeah. With that being said, let's jump into it, y'all. We got geopolitical economic economy report. I mean, sorry, I butchered that shit. I think this is gonna be a Ben Norton video. Hmm. Yeah, let's start with this. We're gonna go on the timeline because this is AMLO. He's the former president.
Of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, known as AMLO, is one of the most popular leaders on earth. And as he is finishing the final year of his 6 year
That's interesting. Off rip, they saying this man the most popular leader on earth. Like the support he has is crazy, just because of the fact that, like I said, Mexico was such in a fucked up place because of American interference in their like private sector, that the people recognize the improvements. Whether you could see it from a privileged American point of view and be like, oh, I got all these critiques on AMLO, but from their point of view, just the simple things that we take for granted have actually started to come back to Mexico to a certain, not like all the way. Don't get me wrong, not even close to where it needed to be, but it's starting, and that's why they love and support this man.
year term, he has an 80% approval rating. This is despite the fact that the corporate media has spent years lying about him, viciously attacking him, and the US government has constantly meddled in Mexico's internal affairs. The US government has funded opposition groups and has funded media outlets, which have constantly attacked AMLO, lying about him. And despite all of this, AMLO remains one of the most popular leaders on earth. This was revealed in a poll that was published this May by a US polling firm called Gallup. The polling firm surveyed Mexicans and found that 80% support AMLO. This is an increase from 60.
Man, 80%. Like, I'm not trying to be funny, but I don't even think the Chinese government, and they control. Well, the theory is that they control all of the data that comes out of their country. So the fact that he got 80%, and that's more than China, and they control the shit that come out their country theoretically, that's crazy. That's like unheard of level of support.
67% in 2022. Gallup pointed out that this makes AMLO one of the most well-liked leaders in the world. And ever since Gallup began surveying Mexicans in 2006, no other Mexican politician has ever been as popular as López Obrador or AMLO. This is deeply ironic because the US government and the media outlets and opposition groups that it funds have claimed for years that AMLO is supposedly threatening Mexico's democracy. The National Endowment for Democracy, the NED, is a US government organization. It's basically a cutout of the CIA that was created supposedly to promote democracy in scare quotes, but in reality, it is used by Washington in order to meddle in the internal affairs of other countries. In the name of promoting democracy, it actually undermines democracy in order to support the interests of the US government and US corporations.
So even with right here, like he got the NED website pulled up, right? And even right here, you can see how crazy this is because they got all the continents on there. Like like you said, this is a front. This is a front organization for private interests under the banner of being like in a government agency that people actually trust. So with that being said, once again, these people are heavily interfering in Latin American countries, heavily, at all times.
And the NED published an article back in 2023 claiming how AMLO's Strongman Act is weakening Mexico. The media in Mexico has been spreading this ridiculous lie as well for years. Right-wing media outlets have said that AMLO is trying to install an authoritarian system. Right-wing elites in Mexico have been publishing articles in Spanish in the Washington Post and other US media outlets claiming that Mexico is returning to the authoritarian era of the PRI. In 2020, the editorial board of the Financial Times, the major
So I'm not trying to speculate too much because I'm not like a Mexican historian or some shit like that. But when they say right wing, left wing, and all that shit in Mexico, it's not as like political spectrum type shit. Matter of fact, we just talked about that on the last episode, so go check that out. It's not as politically motivated in the way that we think in America when it comes to conservatives and liberals or Democrats, Republican, and all that. But with that being said, it is you can say that it's because he's saying like this is what the right wing people in Mexico are saying. And don't get me wrong, um, the right wing in Mexico is still considered like the right wing because they have conservative views, like religious views and all the other shit. But the fact that they don't like this man at all and they consider him to be left, but they saying he gonna end up being an authoritarian though. This is the move they always use when somebody come in the voice of the people, even if it's a little bit, but mostly if it's a lot. They come in and voice it as a voice for the people. They always try to accuse them of being a dictator, authoritarian, or something like that. But the people who were actually in power before this man were the actual authoritarians and dictators and bullshitters. And every most of the citizens at that time acknowledged that they called it out. But you got these right wing people in Mexico supposedly writing these articles, and they're not writing it for the fucking. Obviously, they're not writing it for the citizens of Mexico simply because they already lived through the former regimes and how fucked up it is. They don't need to. They don't need you telling AMLO or he's a. They don't need a right wing person telling them AMLO's an authoritarian. They know he not. So this is for American people, so you can completely support whatever or whenever they do anything dealing with Mexico, whether it be the border shit, whether it be the cartel shit, whether it be just straight up like disrespecting the fuck out of the country and their culture. They want you to be on board with that.
British newspaper published an article titled Lopez Obrador becomes Latin America's new strongman. The Mexican leader is revealing himself as an authoritarian populist. When they published this article, AMLO had about 67% support. Since then, it has increased to 80%. And why is AMLO so popular? It's very easy to explain. He is the first left-wing leader in decades in Mexico. He has significantly raised the minimum wage. He has reduced poverty. The economy has been growing significantly, and there are a lot of good industrial jobs coming to Mexico. Furthermore, he has been completely independent. He's basically the
So you may think like, why would America and the private sector and the government and all that shit, why would they want Mexico to be fucked up? And you got to understand why. Uh, there's like I just said earlier, I think Mexico is like one of America's biggest trading partners. If Mexico ever even got anywhere close to if Mexican economy alone ever got anywhere ever close to the value of a dollar, that would mean the complete downfall of the American empire. They ain't worried about Canada, because Canada was never a threat. Canada got resources and shit, don't get me wrong. We're big trade partners with Canada too. But Canada has always been more loyal to America than Mexico, simply because of the history of it. When the Spanish and the French, the English and all that, and the colonies and all that other shit. They need Mexico to stay fucked up so that the private sector in America can keep profiting off of them, flipping their resources into shit that they sell into either other countries or bringing it back home to sell it for triple the price, quadruple, 10 times sometimes. So they need Mexico to be dependent on America. That's simply it. And anybody who threatens that, they gon' they gonna talk about negative. Not like, I really feel like if this man AMLO was like the real 100% like ruthless champion of the people, they would have been got rid of this man. They would have got rid of him and they would have blamed it on the cartel or something. But with that being said, they still don't fuck with him because he's fucking up the bottom line. And they thinking in my opinion, I'm thinking in the American government and the private sector head, they thinking they can get to the Mexican people and the influence their economics over time to stop this problem with AMLO and his party just by infiltrating. But we're gonna see.
The first Mexican leader in decades who's not a puppet of the United States, he has repeatedly criticized the U.S. for meddling in Mexico's internal affairs, for violating Mexican sovereignty. He has given powerful speeches telling the U.S., we are not a colony. We are not a protectorate of the U.S. Here is a clip of an incredible speech that AMLO gave in 2023 when he held a huge rally condemning the U.S. because many Republican politicians, including Donald Trump and his allies, have been threatening to invade Mexico. This was his powerful response, saying we are not a colony.
Pero lo más importante
The most important thing
es que desde aquí, desde este zócalo, corazón político y cultural de México, le recordamos a esos políticos hipócritas e irresponsables que México es un país independiente y libre, no una colonia ni un protectorado de Estados Unidos.
AMLO has also reasserted sovereign control over Mexico.
We're not about to just not give props to the translator. We're not just about to ignore bro going crazy.
Mexico's natural resources. Oil in Mexico had been nationalized as part of the Mexican Revolution going back to 1910 and the progressive constitution that was created. But the neoliberal right-wing US-backed leaders who governed Mexico in recent years before AMLO, they were gradually trying to privatize the oil in Mexico. When AMLO came back, he promised that he was going to undo the neoliberal free market fundamentalist policies. He renationalized oil, and under AMLO, Mexico nationalized its lithium, the new white gold that is needed for the green energy transition.
So that's what I was talking about with like positive stuff he's doing. I think this video right here is perfect for what I was trying to do. But I'm gonna try to say that I don't think he's gonna. I honestly don't think he's gonna talk about any critiques of AMLO. Not saying, because I'm coming from a point of view as a soldier that any political leader, you gotta stay on their fucking ass, bro. Because the second you start just like assuming trust, it's the second they start betraying the people. So everybody can do better as a leader. if you're a leader, you can do better because there's people that need to be led so that they can become leaders. But they need resources to do that. They need knowledge to do that. And the people who are holding the knowledge and the resources in order to make themselves more wealthy. Anyway, so that's the positive stuff I was talking about when he nationalized like the lithium, the oil, and all this other stuff. This is important resources that are exported around the world for a bunch of money, bro. And it could benefit when you sell that stuff. The money, instead of it going straight to the private sector, is going to the nation, and that's what nationalizing a resource means. Like instead of it going to the private sector specifically, it's going to the government, which they're going to use to fund. The profits are going to the government, which I think they're supposed to use to fund social programs and agencies. So when you nationalize stuff, it's actually good. Privatizing stuff most of the time is bad. Not saying everything should be nationalized, but certain shit do. And I'm gonna list those things like healthcare should be nationalized, petroleum and oil should be nationalized, lithium, like anything like that in America, in my opinion, need to be nationalized so that everybody can benefit from it. And everybody, or the people who are putting the work into it, they not necessarily getting put on by a private person. It's really the government supplying jobs for people through the private sector. Not through it, but not through the private sector, but through the public sector, which could lead to people making their own little private business eventually because they actually got the resources and the money to do so. If we nationalize the lithium, technically, you have a great idea to build with the lithium. Now we got a supply of it that the government is willing to give you almost free so that not only can you benefit from it, but the whole nation can, the whole market can. That's what nationalizing stuff means. But anyway, let's move on.
Y recientemente se nacionalizó el litio, mineral estratégico utilizado en la construcción de baterías para autos eléctricos y sistema de almacenamiento para las energías limpias. Me llena de orgullo poder recordar justicia social, igualdad, soberanía. ¡Viva la expropiación petrolera! ¡Vivan los trabajadores y técnicos de antes y de ahora de la industria petrolera nacional!
So he's a left-wing nationalist who has been reasserting control over Mexico's.
No, that's something you probably not going to hear much of in America. Left-wing nationalists. I mean, they're there, but you're not going to see none of them in power. And if you do, there's going to be a left-wing nationalist that really is benefiting the private sector. But anyway, we're going to move on to the part where he's talking about the U.S. meddling in a election and the part about Claudia. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing.
The Council on Foreign Relations, which is one of the most powerful think tanks in the U.S., closely linked to the U.S. State Department and also to Wall Street, the Council on Foreign Relations has also spread these lies claiming that Mexico's democracy is crumbling under AMLO. The media arm of the Council on Foreign Relations is Foreign Affairs magazine. This is one of the most well-respected media outlets in the U.S., and it has repeatedly published articles by right-wing oligarchs, elites in Mexico who hate AMLO, like, for instance, Denise Dresser, and she published an article in Foreign Affairs claiming that Mexico's democracy is dying because of the authoritarian populism of AMLO. In an article this May, she published another article in Foreign Affairs claiming that people in Mexico are voting for autocracy because AMLO has undermined democracy and brought back party dominance. What these US media outlets and oligarchs are trying to do is blatantly meddle in Mexico's internal affairs in the lead up to the election, which is on the 2nd of June. And every single poll has shown that AMLO's political ally, Claudia.
So the reason why that's important, he talked about the Council on Foreign Relations, just them putting these articles out is letting you know their stance on him and his whole political party and movement. They don't fuck with it, and they saying that publicly. Yeah, they saying like he's saying publicly they interfering with it, but you know behind closed doors that they saying that publicly what they doing behind closed doors, and even at that point, the people support him so much that they wasting their time in this. Like I said, for them it's a long game, but they wasting their time in today's time because people support AMLO and his party so much.
Sheinbaum, who is the former governor of Mexico City, and she is from the same left-wing party of President López Obrador, which is called Morena. And all of the polls show that Claudia Sheinbaum will easily win the election in a massive landslide. Every poll shows her at 53% support, or some even more, whereas the second place candidate, who represents the oligarchy, the right wing in Mexico, all of the different neoliberal parties combined together, including the PAN, the PRI, even the former Social Democratic Party, the PRD, that became a right-wing party, all of the right wing combined together behind the candidate Xochitl Galvez, and she still only has 30% support, despite the fact that all of the major media outlets support her, which all are owned by the oligarchs. All of the major right-wing parties are behind her. The U.S. government is behind her.
And I don't want to speculate, but when you think about the history of Mexico and how you got the Spanish. I think they got the Spanish, the the African slaves that came over a little bit, and uh, the indigenous people that was already here. That's the makeup of Mexico, and obviously the political power and the history has landed in the favor of the Spanish and their descendancies. So obviously, when you say right wing in Mexico, I'm thinking that's what you're talking about. Not trying to be funny. Obviously, that might be biased, and I could be wrong. I admit that, but that's obviously what makes the most sense in my opinion. The right wing is the descendants mostly of the Spaniards that had came there, and probably the people who are just heavily associated with their ideologies, like Catholic. I mean, like religious and economic ideologies and shit like that. That's the right wing of Mexico.
And yet, clearly, the Mexican people support the left-wing Morena party of AMLO and the candidate Claudia Sheinbaum, who, by the way, is a scientist with a PhD in energy engineering. She's an expert on climate change and sustainable development. Again, she was the governor of Mexico City. So this is what actual democracy looks like. But instead, the US government has been spreading this false narrative that supposedly AMLO is threatening democracy. In fact, just a few days before the election, on the 31st of May, the Washington think tank CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is a neoconservative think tank funded by the US government, funded by US allies. Joe Biden's approval, 39%. Only 39% of people in the US support Joe Biden. AMLO is literally twice as popular as Biden. Meanwhile, 56% of North Americans disapprove of Biden. And what was Donald Trump's approval in his last year in office in 2020? Right now, it's June 2024. Well, 4 years ago, in June 2020, Donald Trump's approval rating was 38%. His disapproval rating was 57%. Basically,
So I just wanted to play that part. We about to move on to the next vid. Before we do, like I said, I just want to play that part because people will always, like in our political system in America, they always associate things with the two major parties, Democrats, Republican. So that's a good way for people to really understand, like, uh, the way they making it seem like there's no democracy in Mexico and other places is really like that here. It's like a child when you expose a child and they be like, "Nuh-uh, that's you," type shit. Like that's the vibe I get from the American government and what they've been doing for the last 70 to 95 years, I'll say. But with that being said, we're gonna move on to try to figure out a little bit more about Claudia and move on to talk about the struggles and shit that she gonna actually have to be going against in Mexico. Uh, Mostly stemming from you know who.
Claudia Sheinbaum. Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, coordinadora de Defensa de la Transformación, nació el 24 de junio de 1962.
Okay, I'm gonna run this shit back. Okay, I got the English subtitles on. So y'all gonna have to read this shit because we gonna be listening to some Spanish. El español.
Claudia Sheinbaum. Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, coordinadora de Defensa de la Transformación, nació el 24 de junio de 1962 en la ciudad.
So off rip, she born June 24th. Her birthday coming up. She a Gemini. Wait, is that Gemini or Cancer? June 24th. I think that's Cancer. So off rip, she a Cancer, like Cancer, Gemini bridge. We going off these vibes. Birthday, she was born in 1962, so not too old.
Ciudad de México. Estudió la licenciatura en Física en la UNAM y ha obtenido múltiples grados académicos en diversas universidades de prestigio. Sus padres, el ingeniero químico Carlos Sheinbaum y la profesora emérita de la UNAM, Annie Pardo, participaron activamente en el movimiento estudiantil de 1968, lo que marcó de manera definitiva el perfil contestatario de Claudia Sheinbaum. Sus abuelos paternos vivieron en La Merced y Tepito, mientras que Claudia Sheinbaum vivió en el municipio de Naucalpan hasta los 12 años y posteriormente su familia se mudó a Coyoacán. Sheinbaum destacó como investigadora en el Instituto de Ingeniería de la UNAM antes de incursionar en la política. Sus investigaciones se centraron en energías renovables, calidad del aire y cambio climático, y ha publicado diversos artículos y libros sobre estos temas. En el año de 2007, el panel gubernamental de cambio climático de la ONU, liderado por Mario Molina, del cual Claudia Sheinbaum formaba parte, ganó el Premio Nobel de la Paz. Su primer contacto con la lucha social fue al
Damn, she a goddamn Nobel Peace Prize winner too. She got a little afro. Is that an afro? Am I tripping right now? Is that a fucking afro? Hold on, I missed something. I gotta go back. I missed something.
de cambio climático de la ONU, liderado por Mario Molina, del cual Claudia Sheinbaum formaba parte, ganó el Premio Nobel de la Paz. Su primer contacto con la lucha social fue al ingresar al CCH Plantel Sur, y ya como estudiante de la licenciatura en la UNAM, se integra al Consejo Estudiantil Universitario, cuyo principal objetivo fue la defensa de la universidad pública. En el año 2000, el entonces jefe de gobierno electo de la Ciudad de México, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, nombró a Claudia Sheinbaum secretaria de Medio Ambiente capitalina. Como responsable del área, ella encabezó la construcción del Metrobús, las primeras ciclovías y el segundo piso del periférico. En el año 2015, Claudia Sheinbaum realizó una campaña casa por casa que resultó en su victoria como delegada en Tlalpan, y su ejemplar trabajo al frente de esta demarcación la llevó en 2018 a convertirse en la primera mujer electa como jefa de gobierno de la Ciudad de México. El 16 de junio de 2023, Claudia Sheinbaum se separó del cargo de jefa de gobierno de la Ciudad de México, con el fin de competir en el proceso interno de Morena para la coordinación de defensa de la transformación. El 6 de septiembre, las 5 encuestas realizadas dieron el mismo resultado. Claudia Sheinbaum sería la responsable de dirigir el movimiento creado.
Bro, like, after hearing that, after seeing that, how can you hate on her? Like, you can't, bro. Anybody trying to hate on her is gonna be damn, especially in Mexico. Like, and them cartels and shit, man. We gonna see how that turned out with her and the cartels, quote unquote, situation. But man, that's a powerful fucking life that she lived. Let's get a vibe.
Are you looking for an easy way to view and manage your mail and packages from anywhere, 24/7? Well,
Es tiempo de mujeres en México. ¿Qué puede decir la candidata del PRIAN? Si ellos abiertamente dicen somos de derecha, tendrían todavía menos votos de los que tienen. ¿Qué es lo que quieren? Del mundo.
¿Qué es el feminismo para usted? Porque siempre habla de mujeres pobres primero.
Sí, el feminismo es todos los derechos para las mujeres y que las mujeres seamos.
Like everything about her being elected just speaks so much about the righteousness of the Mexican people, and I mean in general Latina people. Like they're righteous people if you really get to know them. Like not saying everybody's perfect, everybody got flaws, but at the end of the day, it's very powerful that they came together in effort to elect this lady, because everything she stands for and is going to fight for is basically the issues, the social issues that's going on at like all of the, of course, the cartel shit going against America. Uh, their road system just needs to be. I mean, obviously, she would been working on that, and their whole road system is very difficult because of the geographical landscape they have. But they still been putting in work, and I'm pretty sure she's gonna be focused on that too. Connecting the country more, making it more accessible. Uh, what else? She's a woman, and they obviously like that goes against all of the issues they've been having there with the women and shit. She's not necessarily Catholic or religious. She's a scientist, so that goes against all the Catholic stereotype they got, and I guess the religious stereotype they have, or the mumbo jumbo spiritual type Santeria shit. And at the same time, she respects all those things. She understands the differences that make Mexico the place it is what makes it special. That's what make it fucking Mexico is all the differences and coming together to be the I mean, it's unique. It just needs to be improved. Social conditions, I mean, the living conditions in general need to be improved so that they can have a fair chance of actually uh, expressing their talents, expressing their fucking uniqueness. So they got a new president. Let's give it up for him. Now, what does this mean for America? Like all this time, you know, they've been putting the drug cartel problem on Mexico and making it seem like it's their problem. Like I said earlier, obviously everybody's not perfect, but the issue is obviously way worse because of who America is. Being next door neighbors with a fucking monster, it's like dangerous as fuck. And whatever happens there is gonna leak into your country. Every rumor you hear about Mexico, oh, they bringing drugs in. Oh, they are cartel members, they're killers, they're dangerous, and all this different shit. It's lies put together by the media in order to blind you to the fact that in reality, America actually needs these people. And the people who are in charge lets them in when they need them, and it benefits them in the conditions in which they can vampire off of them, take advantage of them, basically. Uh, they don't want you to know that they actually benefit from these people coming in the country, because they also are benefiting from you being mad that about you being mad about your own living conditions and shit. So they need you to have a boogeyman too. So they using them as a boogeyman. The whole time they would never actually stop letting these people come in the country, the Latinos and shit. And the reason why they're coming in is simply because of the fact that these places are being heavily interfered with by the CIA, by the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, by a lot of these government agents, like a lot of these government, even inside of America, the FBI. Now you got that whole ICE shit, ICE. With that being said, all these are interference tools that American government uses in order to interfere with other places. And just so happens that when you next door neighbors to a place, it's kind of like simple for you to interfere. All you got to do is like supply like supply people who are going to do fucked up shit with weapons. And as long as you keep doing that, then you will always have people that are loyal to you, that are willing to go and do what you want in that country. And of course, whenever they want to do outside of when you have a goal for them, they still gonna have them guns and they gonna do what the fuck they want to do. And America don't care, and that's where the cartels and shit come from. They don't care. The drug war is America benefiting. Now, America has some of the most addictive people in the world, especially when it comes to pharmaceutical medicine and shit like that. They will never tell you the truth about billionaires being the real drug cartels, corporations being the real drug cartels, funding this stuff, like real corporations, like Bayer or some shit like that. Like banks are the real people funding the cartels. So we about to get into it right here. I got a couple example videos. This one right here is about Vice. So let's just dive into it so y'all can see what I'm talking about. What the fuck?
Small business owners who want to save time and money on professional liability, also known as errors and omissions or E&O insurance, should go to buyberk.com.
Metían a los contrarios vendedores aquí cercanos y los torturaban en este cuarto.
Jesus Christ.
This kind of being what everybody's starting to clamor after. It's a semi-automatic rifle.
Here we have a border patrol vehicle going very fast. One of the reasons so many guns get smuggled from the U.S. into Mexico is because it's easy.
Que hay corrupción como la hay aquí en México.
Like, and mind you, once again, I'ma always say this. I haven't watched this video. I've never seen this video before. And if I have, it's been if I have, I don't remember ever seeing this video. He is saying everything I just said. He just literally confirmed it. And I'm doing it based off of research, and I'm trying to make a good little nice video in the best way I can right now. I don't want to go into like pulling shit up and typing shit up, especially with the tech that I have. But I've done the research behind it, and I'm saying this based off of the research, bruh. Like, it's easy. It is easy. And listen, he didn't say the guns are going from Mexico to USA. He said the guns are going from USA to Mexico. That is the order. So you are not in danger if you live in America. You not in danger. You in danger. I'm sorry. You in danger. You in a different type of danger. Okay. But in terms of the narrative that they talk to people about, you not in danger when it comes to the drugs. And I mean, okay, once again, I'm sorry. That's you are. But it's a different, okay. In a narrative, okay. The danger is not just it's a both-way danger. And this both-way danger based off of the USA funding and supplying it to the people in Mexico. And in return, when they get the power and all that other shit, they come in. And America benefits off of that side too. Because they gonna use that money and you put it right back into a bank. American bank. An American bank. It's easy. I'm gonna start it over.
Contrarios, vendedores aquí cercanos y los torturaban en este cuarto.
Jesus Christ.
This kind of being what everybody's starting to clamor after. It's a semi-automatic rifle.
Here we have a border patrol vehicle going very fast. One of the reasons so many guns get smuggled from the US into Mexico is because it's easy.
Si hay corrupción como la hay aquí en México, la hay allá.
Teresa Sánchez.
Si Juárez no tuviera El Paso, no tendría violencia.
Privately built border wall. This private wall was built on private land owned by this random brick company that gave permission to this organization called We Build the Wall. Here we have a border patrol vehicle going very fast. Jesus Christ. Because the American Congress was not apportioning the money necessary for Trump to build the wall, they decided to just fundraise and use private money to start building a barrier around here.
Sure enough, we see the wall up ahead, along with something new and unexpected. The wall was recently extended onto government property, with a gate that blocks the road leading to the monument.
Weird. This is weird.
It's a public marker, but this guy is shutting everything off. You can see it all the way up here. He even, built like a nice little road so that the migra, the border patrol, can go up and down, right? And that's part of what it means to be a fronterizo, right? That this barbed wire is not only like a physical thing, it's a mental thing, right? You have to make a decision, what side you're on. You can't be on both sides.
This is fucking crazy.
It is crazy.
What the fuck is wrong with this man? Was he smiling or am I tripping?
So, you run a successful coaching business, or at least you want to.
The idea that Mexico is a violent place full of dangerous people, and that the border is there to keep them out, is a powerful idea.
I am very, very thrilled to be here in the great state of Texas. Today, we started a big, beautiful wall right on the Rio Grande.
It's also an old idea, much older than Donald Trump.
Hello, El Paso! The Border Patrol has 20,000 agents, more than twice as many as there were in 2004. There's a buildup that began under President Bush and that we've continued.
Americans tend to obsess over everything that crosses the border.
And that's why, once again, if you think deep down inside about it, if the left and right both saying, oh yeah, we got an issue, and they telling you about it, they really don't care about it. And if they do, it's because they already invested hella money into it and they got it, like, they actually threatened. But most of the time, they can just get y'all off their ass just by making y'all think they care about some shit, and they really don't. That's it.
In one direction, from south to north. But the border's criminal economy wouldn't work without one key ingredient that goes the other way. Every year, hundreds of thousands of American guns are smuggled illegally into Mexico. America's powerful firearms industry and its permissive gun laws are partly to blame. In Texas alone, there are more than 5,000 stores where anyone with an ID, a credit card, and a reasonably clean criminal record can buy a gun. And those are just the licensed ones. Richard Garcia teaches firearms safety at one of them.
So yeah, once again, just getting some more validation on what I'm saying. I don't care about this man going to a shooting range. I want to see some action.
Your car and head on over. In the event that you do get stopped, it helps to have someone on the inside. This woman works for the Mexican government at a border inspection post, but she says she also works smuggling weapons for the Juarez cartel, sometimes hundreds at a time.
Las personas allá nomás necesitan un permiso cualquiera y puedes ir a comprar una arma. No es tanto requisito como aquí en México. Tiene que estar tu vida en peligro y aún así no te hacen caso, no puedes portarla. Solamente que seas un policía. Entonces en Estados Unidos, pues como quien dice, cualquier gente puede traerlo. Es lo que se mira siempre.
Cualquier gente puede entrar a una tienda de pistolas.
Sí.
So basically, she's literally saying it's easier for you to get a gun in America than it is for you to get one in Mexico. But they are the threat. What the fuck?
Comprar un arma.
¿Y quiénes son esas personas, las que cruzan la mercancía?
Pues más bien personas que usan drogas, porque son los que más fácil acceden. No piensan que los van a agarrar, o ellos nomás quieren el dinero y hacen las cosas.
¿Usualmente son personas que tienen pasaporte americano?
Sí, de Estados Unidos. Son los que lo hacen.
In case you think corruption is a uniquely Mexican problem, the whole system wouldn't work without some help from the other side. And the sorts of cross-border relationships that are common here exist in the underworld too. ¿Y ustedes también tienen personas que trabajan del otro lado, que trabajan para las autoridades estadounidenses?
Sí, es mucho dinero.
Bruh. Literally. Mucho dinero. Sí, it's mucho dinero. Do they have people from the American government smuggling? Sí. Mucho dinero. The American government is paying these people to smuggle this shit. When she say the American government, she means the private interest.
Si hay corrupción como la hay aquí en México, la hay allá. Yo estoy conectada por parte de mi esposo. Él trabaja de aquel lado y él fue el que me metió en esto.
Él trabaja para las autoridades de aquel lado, dice.
De aquel lado.
Does having a 4.0 GPA matter? 6th to 12th grade parents, we're going to expose the college admission.
On the side, yeah. He doing it on the side. Leisurely. Because, man, Claudia, bro. Oh, I pray for you. You got a lot of work to do. We're going to try to help you on this side as much as we can to get these motherfuckers out of power, but fuck, bro.
For over 20 years, there's been a low-intensity war in Ciudad Juárez for control over the border. The city police agreed to show us some of what that looks like, as long as we didn't use their names or show their faces.
Usted dijo que nos va a llevar a un lugar donde encuentran tirados. ¿Eso qué quiere decir?
Tirados son los cuerpos que localizamos por lo regular a las orillas de la ciudad. Normalmente lo que hacen es en la madrugada ir por algún vendedor de droga contrario y en la mañana van y los tiran temprano para que amanezcan ahí.
¿Y cada cuánto encuentran tirados?
Por lo menos una vez por semana.
The police took us to a cartel safe house that just days prior had been the scene of a brutal crime.
Chécate quién es ahí. Solo que dejaron la luz prendida. Chequen el 10-20. Está limpio.
Jesus Christ.
Metían a los contrarios vendedores aquí cercanos y los torturaban en este cuarto. Hasta matarlos. Eso es sangre. Los alambres los utilizaban para ahorcarlos. Las paletas les empezaban a doblar para que alrededor del cuello se empezara a quedar sin respiración.
I mean, I know they found the body, but he sound like he know a lot about what happened.
Now they're taking us to the place where they found their bodies.
Se vinieron para acá, lo hicieron entre los matorrales y hicieron el hoyo para aventar 3 cuerpos.
¿Y los 3 estaban allá adentro?
Sí, 2 hombres y una mujer.
Usted siendo mexicano, siendo oficial mexicano, ¿qué piensa de la narrativa que hay en Estados Unidos sobre la violencia mexicana?
Los números ahí están, los homicidios ahí están. Me queda claro que aquí pasan todo este tema de homicidios por la pelea de mandar la droga, pero también existe un control por las ventas allá, que son las armas que cruzan y compran aquí los cárteles y los grupos delictivos para cometer todos esos homicidios.
¿Y si hubiera más control del otro lado de la frontera, habría menos crimen acá?
Por supuesto.
So literally in the most figurative way, I mean in the most literal way possible, if they just have tighter gun laws in places where there's borders, half of this shit would just die off slowly. That's it. But it just so happened to be in those very states where there's borders, they have the loosest fucking gun laws possible in the whole fucking world. Just so happened to be. Just so happened. Just a coincidence. And each and every last one of them, except for California, which is not really bordering it like that, but each and every last one. Just so happened to be, they love guns and they will never stop. And if they just had a couple looser, if they just moved to a state, they all moved to another state, right? Then they made the gun laws there loose. And they just tighten the ones up there on the border states, that would be the problem. Nope. Just so happened to be.
Por supuesto, porque todas las armas, le digo, el 90% son de allá.
90% of the guns are coming from America.
Entonces, todas vienen, terminan aquí con grupos delictivos, la mayoría utilizándose para tantos homicidios que tenemos en la ciudad.
One person who knows about violence in Juarez is Gustavo de la Rosa, a lawyer and longtime human rights defender.
¿En qué dirección está la frontera ahorita?
Hacia allá, a 1 milla.
México.
No, eso le digo, estamos parados en Estados Unidos. Sí, señor. It was this small reminder that the border is a messy thing, impossible to define or control completely. Even in this border, which is, you know, probably the most heavily enforced border in the entire world. Drones, cameras, border patrol agents, the amount of resources that are devoted to making sure everybody knows exactly where this border is and never crosses it. Even here, you have these weird, absurd, in-between zones where people can cross the border without even knowing it. They can go swimming in another country without even knowing it.
Again, bro, borders and countries and nations, they have benefits, but once they start being used for private, I would say, private interest, then it automatically becomes a mess. Because you're just using it as a way to steal shit and then protect it.
The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we turn now to Mexico, where drug-related violence has surged since President Felipe Calderon sent in the army to fight the cartels when he took office December 2006. The New York Times reported this week U.S. law enforcement agencies have secretly built up networks of Mexican informants that have allowed them to secretly infiltrate some of that country's most powerful criminal organizations. Typically, Mexico is kept in the dark about the U.S. actions inside Mexico with its most secret informants. The U.S. informants have reportedly helped Mexican authorities capture or kill about 24 high-ranking and mid-level drug traffickers. In addition, the informants have sometimes given U.S. counter-narcotics agents access to the top leaders of the cartels they're trying to dismantle. For more about U.S. involvement in the drug wars in Mexico, we're joined by Ed Villumi, author of Mexica, War Along the Borderline. He's a writer for The Guardian and The Observer in Britain and headed back there this week. Ed, it's good to have you with us. We only have a few minutes, so lay out what you have found since the hardcover has come out. Now you've released the paperback.
Well, you get a second bite with the paperback, and the original book was a report from the ground, from the rehab clinics, from the streets of Tamaulipas, Juarez, and so on. But you know, the burning question across the board was what happens to the money? You can't drive around Mexico with hundreds of billions of dollars in cash in a semi-Arctic truck. It has to be banked, and what I found was that it is coming into the United States, into the banking system. Now we have to be careful here legally. I mean, Wachovia is the bank concerned in this instance. It is in the clear that there was a...
So right now he covering his ass, but he literally just said boldly, he gonna take a couple seconds to cover his ass legally, but he literally trying to get across. This is banks in America, 100%. It's benefiting the banks in America. It's not benefiting the banks in fucking Mexico. The cartels are not storing their money in Mexico, and if they are, they're storing it physically. In artillery, in certain resources like artillery and shit like that, and other crazy shit that either the American government is giving them in order to accomplish whatever goal they want at that moment, or just in general, them crossing the border and being able, people crossing the border and selling the gun to them. People from America crossing the border and selling the guns to Mexicans, or vice versa. Them coming in, finding somebody to get them to buy it for them, and then they drive back type shit. Not even drive back, you get what I'm saying, cross back.
Deferred prosecution in March.
Explain what you mean. What was
okay. What happened
involvement?
was various signals, various red flags went up regarding inconsistencies. My contact, they were coming through London. Travelers' checks, serially numbered, strangely signed, coming through, and irregularities spotted. My contact, his name is Woods, put up the alarm. Rather than be sort of thanked for his vigilance, he was basically sort of told to shut up originally and then spat out, frankly. There was a prosecution. There was a settlement in the District Court of Miami, and the settlement said, and it was a deferred prosecution, which means no one goes to jail, instructively, and you have to sort of behave for.
Man, that's fucking. That explains it all right there, right? I don't want nobody else saying shit about a border or nothing. Mexico, Latin Americans, anything going on in their countries, and being scared of them, because at the end of the day, you are wrong at the wrong people. Instead of them going to jail, if you literally cut off the head of the snake at the top, everything else will fucking fall into place and be positive after that, or semi-positive at least. But because when these people get caught and they part of it, they can just walk off with their money or pay a couple fines that they literally are using the public money to pay off most of the time. That's crazy.
For a year, and if you do so, the whole thing is dropped. And we have to say it has been dropped. Wachovia has since been bought by Wells Fargo, who have cooperated with the investigation. It's nothing against Wells Fargo. But what was found was that $110 million, small change, was directly connected to 4 drug deals in Mexico involving the Sinaloa cartel, but that the staggering figure of $378 billion, that's a lot of money, was insufficiently monitored. Now, we don't know how much of that was connected to drug deals. It could be anything between 0 and $378 billion. But it gives us a glimpse of the size, of the volume, the quantity of the money involved. These were coming through things called casas de cambio, holes in the wall, basically, exchange houses, not even a proper banking system. So we have a medium-sized bank, that kind of money. Then I thought, well, let's set this in context. Talked to a man called Antonio Maria Costa, who's the head of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime in Vienna. He's not there any longer. He posits that the volumes of money coming in from Mexico, and obviously his specialty was Europe, Russia, similar operations, laundering of vast quantities of the profits of drugs, and of course the calamitous violence that is the scourge of Mexico, is basically propping up the banking system. It is a major pillar of the banking system. Without it, it would have collapsed long ago. Well, we know that the other pillar propping it up is tax dollars. But
so what we're talking about is anytime we have any type of economic problem in America, it's simply because either the world is getting themselves together or people back home in America are getting themselves together. One or the other, and then that causes the people at the top to panic they ass off, and then they spread that panic through the media. But at the end of the day, like you just said, these fucking banking systems are 100% relying on pharmaceutical, drug, and fucking weapons to prop them up. And along the way, food, but that they consider that to be pharmaceutical. That's how they view that. So let's be honest about it, bro. From here on out, ain't no more like we need to build a board, we need to get a wall. No, we need to cut the head of the fucking snake off. These banks have got to be fucking. They need an exorcism. They need an exorcism. You feel me? Like that's the only solution at this point. We need to get rid of all the fucking banks that are carrying any type of illegal shit going on, and the fact that the people who take part in any of that shit, they get away with it all the time. It proves that they don't care. It proves that they don't care what they don't care. They benefit from it. They benefit from all of it, and the only reason they benefit from all of it is because they funneling it through the bank and privacy through the private sector, and in the public sector, on the media and shit, they saying, "Oh, no, it's oh my God, these Mexicans," and Donald Trump will say that, but then quietly, the other side on the Democrats, they'll still do the same shit. They'll be like, "Yo, we ain't gonna build no wall. We ain't gonna talk about building a wall at least, but we will put hella border patrol on the fucking border." and still complain about the fact that that's not enough. Still complain about it. Just because anytime y'all get upset, they got three good old go-tos. The Mexicans, the Russians, and the Chinese. And the Muslims. So I missed it. It's four. All four of those put together.
And so one has a sort of a glimpse through this case, through this afterword in this paperback
Got niggers.
edition, a glimpse of where all the money goes. We hear a lot about how the Mexican War, this catastrophe in Mexico, is crossing the border into the United States, and indeed how it isn't crossing the border. But one way in which it sure as hell is crossing the border is hundreds of billions of dollars of blood money.
We're going to leave it there, but we're going to do a post-show interview, and we're going to post it online at democracynow.org. We've been speaking with
Russia, similar operations, laundering of vast quantities of the profits of drugs, and of course the calamitous violence that is the scourge of Mexico, is basically propping up the banking system. It is a major pillar of the banking system. Without it, it would have collapsed long ago. Well, we know that the other pillar propping it up is tax dollars. But and so one has a sort of a glimpse through this case, through this afterword in this paperback edition, a glimpse of where all the money goes. We hear a lot about how the Mexican War, this catastrophe in Mexico, is crossing the border into the United States, and indeed how it isn't crossing the border. But one way in which it sure as hell is crossing the border is hundreds of billions of dollars of blood money.
Hundreds of billions of dollars, bro. Half of these billionaires are just billionaires off of drug money, money laundering. They billionaires just off of money laundering alone, bro. Alone. And you thinking it's because they got they such a great businessman. Oh my God.
We're going to leave it there, but we're going to do a post-show interview, and we're going to post it online at democracynow.org. We've been
With that being said, this has been CGT Podcast, another episode. One more time, shout out to Claudia. Watch this.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and freedom of.
Take a look. This was the scene across Houston yesterday as thousands of Mexican nationals tried to cast their ballots in Mexico's presidential election. Instead, many ended up standing in line for up to 8 hours, only to be turned away. Reka Mudaraj joins us in studio. Reka, despite the frustration, turned out to be a historic outcome.
It absolutely was, Len. Claudia Sheinbaum has been elected to become Mexico's first female.
That's so fucked up. They're just going to ignore the fact that these people were denied the right to vote in their own country, but they're going to complain about, they're denied the right to vote outside of their own country, but still they're citizens there and they are proud of it. And they not even try to claim to be American or anything like that and get any benefits off of. They actually here working, doing what they're supposed to do, or doing whatever the fuck they want to do positive things in their life. But if anything, the fact that they just skirted over that is proof that America is really the fucking place that there is no quote unquote democracy. And technically there is no republic. It's just a whole fascist, disgusting regime that's been in power, taking over each other, like gang violence and shit. Like the image that they present on all these terrible places in the world that they call terrible is really the sentiment that I feel like is at home.
president in a landslide victory with nearly 60% of the vote. Now, as you mentioned, thousands of Mexican citizens Mexican nationals lined up outside the Mexican consulate in Houston on Sunday, waiting in line for hours to vote. Not all of them were able to cast a ballot after a long day of waiting and a controversial ending when voting was cut off. Still, many Houstonians said they plan to vote for Sheinbaum, who is a trailblazer in several areas. The 61-year-old climate scientist is also a former mayor of Mexico City. She is considered the political protege of outgoing President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and has pledged to continue many of his policies, including increasing public safety, free public education, and better regulation of water resources. She's also the country's first president of Jewish ancestry. Her grandparents escaped the Holocaust. There are calls for Sheinbaum to address violence against women, especially in rural areas, perpetuated by criminal groups. Mexico has one of the highest murder rates against women in the world. That's according to the National Institute of Statistics and Geography.
Yeah, that's what happened when you are. Yeah, that's what happened when all the shit we just went over, basically. But with that being said, this has been CGC Podcast. Peace.